Welcome to NeverTheLess podcast with Bidemi Mark-Mordi, a show dedicated to organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. Today, you would learn how to discover your essence and live more powerfully.
Hello and welcome back to the NeverTheLess show. My name is Adeshawa Godari. It's the month of February, the month that they call the month of love. And we are having a conversation, what we have called the I Love You But series. In the last episode, we spoke about I love you, but I don't like you. And we said a few things. BMM shared how I love you, but I don't like you. It seems like tough love, but really it's about defining your relationships, giving permission to the one that you say you are in a relationship with, understanding boundaries, and making sure that you're reevaluating yourself and the relationships you're in, so that you're not that person who has everybody in their life saying yes to them. We're in another episode today, and I'm not alone in the studio. I am with the one and the only.
Hello everyone, welcome to NeverTheLess show, a show for organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. My name is Bidemi Mark-Mordi, and every opportunity I get to do this with you is a joy. God bless you.
All right, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Follow Bidemi at Bidemi Mark-Mordi, and make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. This is where you're going to be getting live feeds on everything that BMM is doing in her life. The NeverTheLess show is for you who are a leader and are living in a particular, you are setting standard or raising standards, and you are in this journey alone, what we call organic leadership.
Yes, so it's not like you're a trained leader. You've not had the benefit most of the time of one of these big business schools, but you know that God has called you to this leadership thing, and you're trying to distill your leadership right out of your core, one step at a time. What the NeverTheLess show seeks to do for you is give you tools every week so that you would excel at what it is that you've been called to do.
All right, so I love you but I don't like you. Which one is I love you but I don't care?
Yes, today's episode is titled I Love You But I Don't Care. Now, on the face of it, when you listen to that, it sounds like the person who is making the statement is callous, because you quickly probably begin to think people don't want to know what you know. They want to know how much you care, and all of those aspire to perspire things that we say. But this is not about not caring for the person. This is about not caring how the person feels in the moment. Because again, if you remember our definition, working definition for love is contending earnestly for the highest possible good to be made manifest in the present moment. And I will always credit my coach Anna McCoy for that. Now, if love is contending earnestly for the highest possible good to be made manifest in the present moment, there will be times where the people we love, the only way we would get them to get to where we'll be able to contend for their highest possible good in that moment will be not to care about how they feel.
Right.
That's what this is about. So you have a child again, and your child is eating 2 cups of or 2 sticks of ice cream or whatever already, and crying for a third one, all within the space of maybe 3 hours or thereabout. If you're a parent who loves your child, you will say no to this child.
Right.
This child would naturally cry. They will cry because, especially if they're in the toddler age, that's what they're there to do, to cry and manipulate you by their cries so that you will give them what it is that they want. But you are the parent, and you're the one that knows what that can be the source of a belly ache for the child ultimately.
Right.
Not talking of the sugar crash that happens,
Right.
and all of those attendant things that will happen if the child continues to binge on ice cream. So even though the child is crying, you have to not care in that moment that the child is crying, and just stand your ground. No, you can have ice cream next week because you've had your ration for the whole of this week. Does that mean that this parent does not love the child?
No.
Does that mean that this parent does not care about the child?
No.
As a matter of fact, it is because the parent cares for this child that the parent is taking this posture to say no to this child.
Wow.
Do you get it
Absolutely.
now? So if I don't define it like that, people are going to run away and think that woman, she has horns. That's not what it is about. It is about the fact that I have people in my life at some point I was in people's lives too, and I still am in people's lives. But at some point there were times where people had to stand and say, I don't care what you say, I'm not going to move this. I don't care what you say, I'm not going to let you do this. I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. Especially, say for instance, when we were growing up, my parents had curfew.
Right.
Okay, let's just pretend that I was one of the most compliant children that there were. But the reality is I wasn't. So when your parents will say, oh, what will you tell your father that will make him say it's okay to come back home after 8 p.m.? Absolutely nothing. I can already hear my mother say, I don't care what your excuse is.
Right.
If you just make sure that you are here 7:59, because if it's 8 p.m. and you're not inside your father's house, you are good as dead. Oh, we used to call our parents' names behind their backs. We're still repenting, don't worry. I used to think to myself, surely my mother is one of the 3 Macbeth witches. There's something about her that makes her, and if you venture to come back later, even on a day that you thought she would not know, she will catch you.
Right.
And then of course you bear the brunt of disobedience. Yes?
Yeah.
So why was it? Now I can tell you categorically that the only reason why that worked for children like me, you have to have parents like that. Yes. You have to have parents like that. And that's how come I'm here today. Now someone will say, is that how you've raised your own children? No, I've raised my children a little differently. That's I don't even need to have a back and forth conversation about curfew with them. It's different because from the get-go, there was a way we intentionally decided to raise our children. So it is different. Do you understand?
Absolutely.
It? But in my time, my thing was to push the envelope. I just wanted to know what can happen when your father says no and you do it anyway. And I know how many times I found out. So the point is that it's because they cared for me.
Yeah.
Because honestly, sometimes when I'm sober enough and I think about it, I probably would not have made it to this day. But for the mercies of God and for the fact that I had parents who did not care what I was saying or how I felt in the moment. So I love you, but I don't care. It's about people who have those other people in their lives, and those people are about to self-destruct. And they have all the reasons in the world why they are that weak, why they're doing what they're doing. You have to be resolute to say, I don't care what your reasons are, you are going to rehab. I don't care what your reasons are, your phones are confiscated for this season. I don't care what your reasons are, you cannot go back to work, because that place where you work, the people that are around you are feeding your habit. I don't care what it is that you are telling. I don't care that you are in 300 level and we have paid so much money. Do you have friends in school that supply you drugs? So we will not go there anymore.
Wow.
You can't take someone who is about to self-destruct and continue to try to pamper and baby them. Because what again is our definition? To contend earnestly for the highest possible good, to be made manifest in the present moment. Recently I was talking to a parent who found out that their child was doing drugs. And they were like, what should we do? I said the first thing is pull them out of that school. Oh, we have spent so much money. And I'm like, you will soon lose a child if you don't do. So at that point, they have to not care enough for what the monies they've expended, but care enough to keep their child alive. Because yes, you know, so many things happen and people find themselves in situations that they shouldn't find themselves in. We've heard a lot lately about mental illness. We have heard a lot. Many things can trigger many things. You have to be the parent, or you have to be the loved one who does not care enough to see that the other person gets help. So this is about people who want to self-destruct. And we're saying to them, we love you too much. And we know what God has packed on the inside of you. In the few moments where you are sane and you are sober, we see the things, the brilliance that you are. We can't let you go destroy yourself simply because we want to prove to you that we love you.
Wow. Wow.
That's what this is about.
Wow. Thank you so much, ma'am. Somebody is saying, okay, that works in a parent-child relationship. As a leader, I mean, you're a leader yourself. And you're raising other leaders, and you are in your workspace, marketplace, assignment, whatever it is you're doing. Can we have that same kind of relationship?
Interventions can be had within the scope of any kind of relationship. What's the worst that can happen? I pastor and I'm raising other leaders, like you have said. So what's the worst that can happen? The person would jump shop, change churches. That's fine, but it will not be because I did not push by love to intervene. Do you understand that?
Right.
So it's not that it's in every case that you get to succeed, but it will go down. If hopefully that person finally finds help, it will go down in over time in history that you did your best to contend for their highest possible good in the moment.
Wow.
Do you
Absolutely,
feel that? So it's not that, just because, for my children I can lock them up, but this person is not my child. But if you love someone enough, you'll go look for the ones who can lock them up. It's part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Wow, amazing. All right, so we're going to quickly go on a break, and then we're going to come back and continue to have this conversation, because I think it's very important that we determine how we manifest love in the lives of those that God has called us. And this question I actually asked you, I think is even very sensitive, because within the Christian community, we have the mindset of, I hear God also myself, so why should you, want to lord stuff over me? And so we're just going to come back and, continue. We're going to continue because some of us, we said in the previous episode that it's important to have that person who loves you but doesn't like you. So it's one thing to know that they don't like you. It's another thing to find out that they don't care about how you feel.
Yes.
So if they're saying to you, don't do this. In fact, I'm suspending you and I don't care.
Yes.
And then they decide, okay, Jesus is everywhere.
Yes.
I can move on. But don't worry, we're going to come back and have that conversation because I think it's hot. We'll be right back. God bless you.
In a world filled with many fears and discouragement, life often becomes a burden. For those who know the way, life is just simple. Do not worry, you're not alone on this life's journey, as Bidemi Mark-Mordi shares powerful insights and principles from her everyday work and life experiences in her book, NeverTheLess. NeverTheLess is a book designed to encourage and equip you to face life with courage, hope, and determination. Get a copy of NeverTheLess and other books written by Bidemi Mark-Mordi, like The Wisdom of the Seed, Honor, The Theology of Work, and so much more from a bookstore nearby, or call 080-905-63555, or send an email to bidemi@bidemimarkmordi.com to place your order. I guarantee you will make it. NeverTheLess.
We're back on the NeverTheLess show, a podcast for organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. My name is Adishawa Godari, and this is Bidemi Mark-Mordi. We've been talking about I love you, but I don't care. And I think that before we went on that break, it was about to get heated. But before we continue that conversation, I want to say that the first thing we said in the first episode is that love is not an emotion. In this episode, I'm saying that our feeling is one of the things that can destroy us.
Yes, it gets in the way of true love.
Yes. And so because it's our feeling, when we now get, in quotes, we think that we get hurt or allow ourselves to get hurt by somebody's manifestation of love. There's trouble.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's use the word expression of love. Someone's
expression of love.
Yes.
Okay. So, all right, before we went on that break, I was asking a question in the context of church. And no, this is not just the context of church. Like BMM said, intervention can be.
Yes, I've heard about interventions that happened in a workspace. So the boss and the colleagues invite the family in.
Wow.
Yes, and they said, this is what we have noticed.
Wow.
That your loved one is doing. And we love him too much. We love him enough not to just sack him and ask him, fire him and tell him, oh, you don't have a job here anymore. We've seen him in his brilliance. And so we're appealing to you to do something about it.
Wow.
Yes, I've seen that happen. Yes.
That's amazing. So I was asking BMM, I said, in the place where a worker or an employee says, because I love you, because the leader says I love you and I don't care, and issues out or mets out what's it called now? A disciplinary measure
or arresting measure for
whatever thing that they did. And that person, and like you always say, we have what's a free moral agency.
Yes.
Free moral agency is the ability to choose. You know, you still have that capacity to make decisions and choose by yourself. Now, that employee or that church member now says, oh, they've given me a disciplinary measure. Who are they to lord such thing over me? What position should you take, and what position is actually expected of that employee? The person who is being disciplined.
Okay, so first and foremost, we need to understand that when things like this happen, it's you who is on the spot, is not anyone else.
Right.
Because we have been in leadership in church, and I've had situations like that come up, and someone will be like, everyone else is doing it, why is it that you are singling me out to punish me? The point is that you are the one that God has showed up in the moment.
Wow.
And he wants to correct. It's not the crowd. You are the one. And so when we make it about ourselves only and not about every other person, perhaps we will understand that these people love us. That's the only reason that they are calling us out. When we went on the break, I was telling you the story of a young man who I had worked with many years ago, who put a young lady in the family way, and they were not married. And our father in the Lord then, an elderly man, decided that, okay, there are measures. Measure number one is this will be announced to all the workers in church. Measure number two is that you will be suspended for X number of months. Measure number three is, since you say you wanted to marry the girl, you would marry the girl. So actually what this guy did was he waited, and the church helped him contract the marriage.
Wow.
So the marriage was done. Then he left. Because he didn't want to spend those number of months sitting in the designated position, place where they had asked him to sit. He didn't want to submit to discipline and then restoration.
Right.
So he left and he went somewhere else. And he went off, and for many years, at least 4 years, because I had even now transitioned out of that ministry, when he came back, because things shut down for him. And no, I'm not trying to scare anyone. If this were not something that we shouldn't mention names, we could have mentioned names. This happened. He came back like 4 or 5 years later, and someone who was in a small service and they had discipline, and he said no and went off in a huff, came to, by that time he came back, church, maybe when this thing happened, church was like maybe 100 people. By the time he came back to apologize, church was like 700 people.
Wow.
Many of them didn't even know him.
Wow.
But he had to rehash the story by himself. Because when we don't allow people who care enough about us, that they don't care about how we're feeling, to exert their expression of love upon us, it can lock us down.
Wow.
It can lock us down. And so when this young man found himself locked down by many other things, he had to retrace his steps to come and now accept the discipline that he ran away from many years prior to that time. So yes, I know that we're a very woke generation, and these things are old school and they don't count in the scheme of things for how we believe. But take a look at your life, even look at your friends straight out of primary school, secondary school, university, and tell me whether these things don't matter. Tell me if there was anybody you know who didn't have people who gave them boundaries and parameters, who made it.
Wow.
But boundaries are there for a reason. And
Yeah.
so when you say, oh, yeah, if you love me, you would not have put a boundary in place.
That's setting you up for destruction,
Yes.
major destruction.
Yes, yes.
Wow. And you know, just by sharing this, I'm remembering the back and forth with God and the children of Israel.
Oh yeah.
Those people. And usually I don't like to say, oh, you know, a lot of
Is
times
it
we want to be on
we?
yeah.
No, when you want to talk about it,
Say we because we are like that, you know. And every time the scripture will say, and they went haywire, just using in my words, and God just King of Babylon, yeah, sort them out.
Yes.
You know, this one sorts them out, and in that moment, it will look like God didn't care.
God forgot them. That's what they.
And they will
say.
cry out, and they will scream, and immediately God responds. They go back.
Yeah.
We go back. We go back to you know, we go back to that very thing. But it still goes to show that the fact that God disciplines you is because He loves you.
Yes.
And you know, you said something that is going to stick with me. You said He did not come back to submit to discipline and restoration.
Yes.
So it's submission to discipline is actually submission to restoration.
Yes, it's when you submit to discipline that you have the chance to be restored.
Wow.
Every time you walk away from discipline, from the opportunity, because we usually don't see discipline as an opportunity. Every time we walk away from the opportunity of discipline, we also shut the door to restoration.
Wow.
We also shut the door to restoration.
So in other words, we determine how God moves in our lives.
Yes.
We determine our moving forward experiences by what we're willing to submit to.
Yes, but even think about it, when even in a workplace situation like the one that I said, I actually saw it happen, where the office were the one that invited the family to say, you may not know what your son or your father or your husband or your brother is doing, but this is what it is that he's doing. We can tell that he's on drugs. His work product, his productivity has not only dipped, the quality of his work is no longer what it used to be. And the way he dresses to work, we just can tell that something is wrong. We need you to step in. Wow. Do you understand that? And you know, even in those conversations and engagements, because I was part of those engagements, the office kept saying, we don't want to we will not fire him. We don't want to fire him, but we want him a commitment. Because we know he's good at what he does when he has it together. Do you understand that? So okay, in that situation, of course it was the employee that got up and left.
Wow.
Because he couldn't understand the point, you know, and then sometimes,
why do you care so much? Just leave me.
You know, and then sometimes the shame. When someone does not care enough for what you think or how you're feeling, and they decide to just let things be what they are, it can make you feel a bit ashamed in front of them. But what you need to understand, that love, the Bible says love covers a multitude of sins. That's love can cover so much shame. If they didn't love you in that situation, I was so grateful that an organization will have those conversations. Yes. Because in that situation, imagine that he had played ball and he had done what it was that they were asking him to do. He wouldn't have had to be without job. And ultimately, what they were asking him to do that he refused to do, when he now didn't have a job and he didn't have the capacity to keep up the habit.
Fallout. Wow.
In the end.
Wow.
Do you see it?
Wow.
See it?
Wow.
So these things are put there. I always say to my children, parameters are because we want to keep you safe. If you see a fence and you think that it's because someone hates you, there's no telling what mistakes you will make.
Right.
So that's what it is about.
I totally understand this. So for somebody who says, but I don't know how to take discipline. Maybe somebody who's listening to us right now and is saying, okay, you are making sense somehow, but I don't know how to accept discipline. How can I accept discipline? Because I think for different reasons, maybe they've come to that place.
The key is to trust that the one that you are dealing with loves you enough to want the best for you. Let's go back to the definition of love. to contend earnestly for the highest possible good to be made manifest in the moment. They are contending for something beyond what you can see in this moment.
Like Yoruba people
Yes.
say,
Yes. So that's what it is about. So you need to trust these people. That's why in the first episode, I did tell us about, that was last week, I told us about definitions. When you define someone properly in your life, then when they dig their heels in and they say, no, this is your life, but we want to straighten it out, you would, even in that place where you don't want them in your business, you ought to be grateful that someone cares enough not to care how you're feeling to be in your business when no one else wants to be in your business. Everybody's like, oh, it's their life, let them do what. But this one person is saying, if you go down in the mud, I'm going to come there with you because I know I've seen you at the mountaintop before and I know you can get back there.
Wow.
So this is important, and we need to be those people who don't mind to be labeled something just because we're contending for someone's highest possible good in this moment. Shut down the things that need to be shut down. Parents are in the, I've also been in a situation where a parent, the child had this issue in this country, and they come to me and I said, bring the child home. Just forget what you will have to say to your friends when your child comes back and has to go to rehab at home. Just bring your child home. They'll say, okay, we've heard. But of course, that's what happens. That they'll say to pastor, we've heard. And then the next thing, they'll move that child from that particular country or that city to another city and try and do this fast track rehab thing, for instance, and then release expect to get results. But that usually doesn't work. Because part of shocking the devil out of our lives when he wants to destroy us is to tell them there's no shame here. If you don't tell the devil there's no shame here, he would always find a way to destroy. But the moment you say to him there's no shame, people come and say, your son is home once, and say, oh, we had some issues, we had to pull him back. It's the truth. But even the child thinking about it will be like, I don't want this to be at least in my case. No, I wasn't on drugs, but I might as well have been, yes. So the point is that in my own case, when my parents had to hem me in like that, just the mere fact that I didn't want it to be about blessing every time.
Only
think about it. I had to sit down and say to myself, if these people are this vehement, if they will not change their mind about the fact that you can't destroy yourself, there must be something to it.
Wow.
Do you see?
Absolutely. And as you're going on and on, I just keep hearing his perspective. The person you need to have the gift of perspective to be able to see right.
Yes, perspective, but most importantly, trust. Trust that even when they are not speaking the right, what you would consider the right words to you in the moment, they love you.
And I actually think that some of us actually need that hard hand. Some of us will not. Some of us will not function well without that tough hand.
I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, we won't function well.
I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't.
And as I'm saying, I'm remembering when we got married, and my husband is the person, and he would do what is it? I had to sit down one day and say, no, this is it normal. And in our generation, they'll say, if he doesn't love you, he will not, if he loves you, he will hug you 10 times a day, he will rub your head. And this was not hugging and rubbing head. I'm like, is there love here? Is there love in this house? But it took me, sitting, I think it was God that he said, sit down. Now say to yourself, I did not make a mistake to marry this person. I said it over and over and over and again. And it began to make sense. Because I now sat down and thought about it. If this guy was gummy, I would not be where I am right now. So we need to actually embrace this relationship because they're actually rare.
Yes, and very rare, very rare, very, very rare, very, very rare. And if you have someone in your life who's that kind of person, you ought to be grateful to God. Because it's not that people like that don't exist. They're just tired of trying to, be that person who pulls people out of the fire, even when they don't want to be pulled out of the fire. When I think about it, I think about someone who doesn't know how to swim but jumped in the swimming pool. They begin to drown. Do you know that the person who is drowning, when the lifeguard jumps in to get them, struggles the most?
Right.
So what does the lifeguard do? The lifeguard will usually knock the person out because otherwise both of them can drown. Do you understand that? And it is because he cares. So whatever blow he would give so that the person becomes limp enough to bring them back to life was not malicious. It was help in that season. And that's the picture or that I can see when I'm trying to describe this. And if you're asking me, did this happen in the Bible? I can tell you two instances. One instance that it happened, Nathan and David, the prophet Nathan and David in the case of Bathsheba. And Nathan went and he was the one that called David out. That's how David came back to himself and came back to his senses. And when David transcended that bad patch, it was the same Nathan that came back when the David's other sons didn't want Solomon to become king, to stand in Solomon's corner. Can you see it? And then if you ask me, I can also show you another instance where it wasn't done. In the case of Samson, if Samson had someone who knocked him back in, Samson would have been one massive character in the Bible. I know we think that he did well, but no, he actually ended way below his potential. He didn't have to die to kill 1,000 people or to kill more people at his death. He could have done that in life if he had just had someone who was strong enough to rein him in, or maybe if he had given someone permission so that they could rein him in. So these things happen, and we need to know that love is not just sitting down and eating chocolate and watching movies and going out on dates. One of the greatest expression of love is the capacity to ask the tough questions and to say no. And we need to embrace that. It was what our parents and our grandparents had in those generations that their marriages worked. It's what we don't have now. Now, any little thing I want to leave, people will actually be getting married and they will calculating. No, they will actually go on Instagram and they're shutting the door to their room in their father's house. They will post on Instagram and say everything is still the way it is, just in case. ... And so why won't they come back? When I was getting married, my uncle whom I was living with called me and said, "Are you sure?" I said yes. So you were the one that picked him. I said yes. So you can't come back. I said yes, sir. So the first years in our marriage where it was rough, I dared not go back and say, they were not far from me. I dared not to go back home and say, uncle, if like I'm tired. There's no space here. Do you understand? Tough love, people who lock us in, so that, as the Yorubas will say,
Finally, I want to ask BMM, for somebody who has been, you said, some people just want to do it, but they're tired. Maybe tiredness is not the answer, but what encouragement can you give them to get back to that place? Because there's some people who have said, in this person's life, I have tried and tried and tried and tried. And I know that there might be some people like that
Okay, what so do you do? I've been in that state. What I've had to ask God to do was to increase my love for this person. Increase my love for this person. So because you can run out or burn out and begin to run on fumes. So you need to always go back, since you're the one who is in that life, in that season, to contend for that highest possible good to be made manifest. You need to be able to go back to the one who put you on the assignment and ask for a refill. So that's what I would say that that the people should do.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ma. It's been an exciting conversation, and I hope that this conversation will actually restore relationships relationships.
I pray
And
so much.
and get people to intentionally invite people to rein them in, because that's the one thing. I mean, just that story of Samson, I think it's disheartening, to know that, to see that you have a potential, but not have somebody, to not care enough to make sure that potential, you get to it at the highest level. So thank you so much for joining us on the NeverTheLess show today. Remember to follow Bidemi Mark-Mordi on Instagram and Facebook at Bidemi Mark-Mordi. Our YouTube channel is very open for you to click the subscribe button and click the notification bell, so that once we have a new podcast, you would get a notification in your email. Thank you so much, everyone. God bless you.
And thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next week. Remember, if you discover who you are in God, you can live a powerful life. So what's my counsel? Embrace your superpower. God bless you. We'll see you next week.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to NeverTheLess. For more information and resources, call 080-90563-555. Don't forget, discovering your purpose helps you live more powerfully.